Should you record long videos like YouTube videos in landscape or in portrait? So the thing is, it's kind of difficult, I would say. Here's why. The thing is, there is this one big trend. People watch stuff on their phones because the phone is the one thing that's connected to us everywhere we go, and it's the one thing that has a screen that's big enough to actually watch something on. This also means, at the same time, that if you screen record something, like on landscape, for example, like a big program on your notebook, and then people watch it on their phones, they just cannot see anything at all, apart from you speaking, but that's not seeing. So now the thing is, everything is going mobile these days, and just the most amount of views, I mean, it's also on TikTok. I mean, who watches TikTok on desktop? And it's the same with YouTube Shorts. Who watches YouTube Shorts on desktop? No one. The thing is, you can only kind of watch YouTube Shorts on a mobile screen because it's actually the swiping thing, and it doesn't really work with landscape videos. So now the obvious question is, should you also change these videos into, actually this looks kind of cool with my hands here, but well, let's just keep on talking, I guess. So should you record longer videos also in landscape? The problem, of course, is many of us have like this artistic view about YouTube. It's not like a really artistic view, but many people just want to make movies. And movies used to be landscape, and now if you just record something like this, it's just a random video on the internet. It's not like a very nice movie that has some smooth B-roll in it. That's one part of the equation, and this is not like, I'm not talking about others having these kind of artistic standards, but I'm talking about me, of course, mainly me, because yeah, that's the main reason I do these videos, because then I can talk about me all day long, but that's besides the point. Here's the point. First, IGTV came out, and IGTV basically, at the first time, or for the first time, made this question for many a reality. This question, should I now record in Potrait for IGTV, because IGTV used to be only portrait videos. Now it's kind of both. It's basically a YouTube copy on Instagram, and we also have Facebook Watch now, which is basically everything that is uploaded onto IGTV. So it's basically Instagram and Facebook merger. That's just not fully happened. But the thing is, let's actually talk about my experience recording these videos. The problem is that some things are just not meant to be portrait, even though our phones are like this. Why are our phones like this? Because our hands are like this, and therefore it used to be like very small, something our hands could actually hold, but then it just moved up and up and up. But of course, I mean, you still have to only hold, you only have to wrap around. I mean, this doesn't really mean that we will end up like with lightsabers, with screens in the future, but the thing is, you just have to hold it, and therefore it can also be longer. Now, another part of this is, of course, also we can't just turn the phone and then we actually have like a proper screen where we can actually watch movies or YouTube videos. And this is what many people do. But the turning of the screen actually is just a step that's for many too complicated. It's not that it's too complicated. It's just that everything that makes things more difficult just makes them more difficult, and therefore less likely, because you have to put in more effort to do the same thing. Let's come to actually me. My watching experience was like, in the past I had like phone cases where you could actually flap out something or a kickstand, and then I just put it on the counter somewhere because I watched YouTube videos about the universe while brushing my teeth. Classical example, I guess. But the thing is that over time, I found myself, for one, watching less and less YouTube, because I actually was like, yeah, of course I can learn more all the time, but what about actually applying all the stuff? But it's just the exploit trade-off. That's something different. Of course, another main point is, before I come back to the actual watching experience and my watching experience, is the thing that we have two eyes. And if you ever thought about it, every eye has a visual field, and if you put those two visual fields together, you actually have something that's more like broad than, because every eye essentially has I mean, eyes, nothing different. The pupil actually is just a hole with some cover in front of it, and therefore everything is just a circle. And now if you have two eyes, it essentially are two big circles that are connected, and two big circles connected are like more like a square like this, not a square, but a rectangle like this, instead of just a rectangle, or the same thing in portrait. Now, this is the main reason movies are in this landscape format. The problem, of course, is that over time the artistic purpose of making movies kind of trumped the purpose of actually just having something the eyes actually can watch, and therefore you sat in the cinema and you had basically like this one stripe in some movies where you're like, yeah, and here and here. So this is not what it meant to be. So there was like the 2:3 format. That means for every unit of height, you had like 3 units of this. Like this is the classical format every single camera had basically. And then it switched to 3:4, and yeah, 2 other formats as well. Then 16:9, and then 18:9, and also phone these days. For example, my phone has, I think, 21:9. These are of course just random units, probably not even inches. I don't really know what this is based on. It's just a proportion of how the height compares to the length. And of course we just use numbers that are like full numbers and not comma numbers, but it's just something else. So now, should you record everything in this format, or should you record actually in landscape? The problem, of course, sometimes is that you want to record something, but it just cannot be recorded in portrait. For example, when I play the guitar and I want to record all this, I mean, I could do it and be like this, for example, but then you wouldn't see my hand. And if I moved back very far away, actually like this, and then you don't hear me for once anymore. But also, I mean, I'm kind of small in the picture, and there's like this much overhead here, and this much overhead at the top of the picture. Also, I mean, if you record yourself, like on landscape, you just cut yourself off like here and here, and you don't have to record like also the cajon you're sitting on, or also your jeans, and therefore you can actually do the zoom thing where you just record something in your underwear. But now, the final question is, should you record portrait or landscape? I am kind of torn in between both, and I actually wanted to make this very easy for me and just record everything in portrait. And I actually did this already, I tried this already, and because coming from my experience, I just want things to be portrait, and I also just want a automatic switching function, because I just, whenever I watch something in the past on YouTube, because I currently don't watch that much YouTube anymore, but whenever I have my phone here, I just want to be like, and then you put your phone somewhere, and then it falls over, and then you put it against the bottle, and then it falls over again, and it's just endless. And you can actually put your phone in portrait to something, against something, and it isn't as likely to fall over, because it actually is more stable. The problem, of course, is if you have a phone and you actually want it to stand somewhere, and you have like a phone case attached to it, then the actual phone case has to have something that's like here, and also has to have something that's longer. Therefore, having something that just covers this distance for actually having like a kickstand on your phone is much easier. But that's just something else. But most people just have their phone in one hand. And I mean, that's just kind of really weird, because actually we have our hands to do like other stuff as well, but they just hold it in their hand. And whenever they are cooking, I don't know, maybe they are cooking like with one hand, and this is actually something I already saw. I just kind of, seeing myself in there just reminded me that this is something I already saw. But now, what I've decided for myself is to record everything that's kind of possible in a landscape format. Also recorded like random things where I just walked around and I just but I just recorded myself talking, and I also just kept it in landscape, I guess. Of course, it's much more practical recording in landscape than in portrait, at least till now, because I mean, I'm sitting here and there's like this much thing. I could also like turn my phone down even more, and then my legs would be in the picture even more. And I don't know, do my legs really have to be in the picture? I mean, it's not the entire picture, I guess, but the thing is, what it makes really sense to have like one rule. Because so a rule that would look like this: for every video you record, you just do these things, and you don't have to decide every single time if it's landscape or if it's portrait. And this would be very easy, and this is indeed what, so these rules, these principles are what made these videos, for example, for me so easy. One of these rules is, for example, to just not cut these videos. And I mean, sometimes I rarely do if I'm like, yeah, but I recorded like 2 hours and I just don't want to have 2 hours of my life wasted. Therefore, I just might cut it. But in the end, I'm like, yeah, was it worth all the psychological draining effect of, yeah, but then I just cut these things afterwards. And the thing is, now, if I'm recording something and I'm, okay, yeah, but this was too long because I wanted to create a short video, 60 seconds. It was like 63 seconds. Therefore, I would have to cut it. I just delete it. And that's it. And if I don't make it like right into camera, then it's easier. And it would be the same for portrait. So a decision rule would be very nice. But here is why it doesn't work, at least for me, because I record music. And whenever I record music, I also record video. And it just doesn't really make sense to only have portrait because, I mean, rooms, for example, are not very high, but they are like, it just makes more sense often to also use landscape. So what you could theoretically do is just try to record everything in portrait that's possible and just record everything in landscape. That's a final solution, I guess.